difference? Well-trained political activists who know how to move the needle. And that's exactly why training matters. A small group of people can make a tremendous impact if they're properly trained how to.
What do you think about it?
I think it worked out well. I think you did good. Hopefully I provided some value, tried to give you some
Yeah,
energy.
absolutely. Welcome to the Leadership Visibility Series, a platform by CARO, where we are trying to explore how to build ethical, strategic, and future-ready leaders for democracies all over the world, starting with Bangladesh. I'm your host, A.N.M. Nuruddin, founder of CARO, Care for Assets, Resources, and Obligations. And today, we are beginning where every impactful steps begins, with hope, with vision, with mindset, and some training. Joining me for this very first episode is someone whose global impact has already shaped more than 24,000 global activists. Stephen Rowe, the director of Cato Courses, a political leadership trainer, and someone whose insights has shaped this podcast too. So Stephen, welcome, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's an honor. Wow, this podcast is happening. Life is good, and I am thrilled to be with you, my friend. Let's have a good conversation.
Thank you so much. So, if we want to start with what we are trying to discuss today is why politics should be learned, like why political leaders should be trained. What is the nature of politics? Like sometimes in my back times, I first learned that leadership is training yourself to execute. So are we building political leaders, or do we have political leaders who are training themselves to execute?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a lot there. The first thing that I think about when people say, do we need training? First of all, let's cut to the chase quickly. The answer is yes. But when people are thinking about this question a lot, it reminds me a lot of what I hear often is called the Sir Galahad theory of politics. The Sir Galahad theory of politics. And that basically states that I will win because my heart is pure, because my ideas are enough, because they're the ones that are going to win. Clearly, in the data, you can see that this is the right path to take. And I've got empirical evidence. But once we see, as the rubber meets the road, as people commonly say, once you actually start putting your ideas into practice, you find that the best ideas don't always win. Sometimes worse ideas win. And there's a lot of good reasons for that. Some of them being that that's what more people believe than you. Oftentimes, it could be what a leader, your democratic leader, or a more authoritarian leader may believe and cast down what their ideas may be. And so oftentimes, the best idea doesn't win. And what that means is that you owe it to your ideas to study how to win. And I am a student of Morton Blackwell at the Leadership Institute, and he often says this. He says that you owe it to your political philosophy to study how to win. And that's exactly right, because back a little bit of a history lesson, in 1964, Barry Goldwater was running for president in America, and he was the first conservative to ever run for president in America. And even when he was running, it was Ronald Reagan. During his Republican National Convention, basically where you tell everybody this is going to be the nominee for the Republican Party. Ronald Reagan was speaking on his behalf at the time, a governor of California, and gave a great speech on a time for choosing. And it seemed like conservatism was going to be the next big thing. And the ideas were right. And looking back on it now, here's what happened. Barry Goldwater lost almost the largest election in history. It was the second worst defeat in history. And people thought, okay, well, this means that conservatism doesn't work. It should be disbanded. These ideas of liberty don't need to work in our culture and our society. And that's not the case. What we found was a small cadre, a small group of people that got together and said, hey, these ideas are right, but The American populace just doesn't know them yet. What if we trained activists how to perform better in politics? And they got to work right away. Flash forward to where I want to take you is 1980 now. That was 1964, 1980. Ronald Reagan runs for election and wins, and then runs for re-election in 84 and has the largest landslide victory in American presidential politics. He won 48 out of 50 states. I think the only ones he didn't win were Minnesota and Hawaii. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. But it begs the question. It's the same philosophy. Barry Goldwater in 1964 and Ronald Reagan in 1984 had the same political philosophy, but one of them won by a landslide and one of them lost by a landslide. The answer, what's the difference? Well-trained political activists who know how to move the needle. And that's exactly why training matters. A small group of people can make a tremendous impact if they're properly trained how to win in politics. That's why I'm excited to learn about what you're doing and why we're talking right here, because I think training truly matters. And that short story illustrates how it's not always because you have the best ideas. It's because you have activists that are ready to thrive and ready to take charge in leadership positions where it matters.
Wow, that's an excellent historic example and proof that if you train people to lead, then in generations, they will succeed eventually.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I love that quote. It's an old Chinese proverb. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. And the next best time is right now. And those trees, those seedlings, those saps are going to grow into trees of liberty. And we need to plant these all over Bangladesh, which means we need to train as many people as we possibly can how to be effective, what they can expect, how they can get involved. And oftentimes what I see from citizens across the country and across the world is this idea of apathy. Apathy meaning I don't care, or I can't change it. This is bigger than me. You know, I can't do anything, little old me. No, you can. And that's what we need to encourage people to do. I think leaders do a couple things really well. Number one is they cast a vision. And I love the Bible personally. And there's a good Bible verse. It's Proverbs 29:18. And it says, where there is no vision, the people perish. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And so it's so important for us to cast a vision of what's possible and then inspire people to join us on this journey to take action for political activism. And man, when these people are trained, you're turning soldiers into super soldiers for the ideas of liberty. That's a beautiful thing. And we need a lot more great leaders across the world.
Wow. That being said, I would like our audience to know Stephen was involved in Leadership Institute, a Republican activist training center focused on building grassroots activism and to like top level leaders for 8 years. So drawing from your experience, what you saw, like how training these people looks like what kind of scenarios we should expect, as you know, CARO is trying to do something like that in Bangladesh.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for context, Leadership Institute's a 501c3 nonprofit. And so it's just IRS stuff, but we have to say conservative. We can't say Republican and Democrat, those types of words. So, but what to answer your question directly, I've seen a lot of transformational change. I've seen people walk in the door not knowing anything about politics and leave fully elected for office, which is so cool.
Wow.
I've had so many interns that have done that. One of the youngest representatives, if not the youngest, he was in the last term. So if he's not, he's like the second youngest. This is an 18-year-old kid. His name's Elias Coop Gonzalez. He's a representative in the great state of West Virginia. And he decides to intern at the Leadership Institute so that he can get his skills. And I think he's a good example of what's possible because he walked in just wanting to make an impact in politics, but really not knowing where to start. And where he started was taking training. The trainings that made the biggest difference for him, first and foremost, was the Candidate Development School. And this can be replicated anywhere where we have successfully elected politicians. So if you have someone who's done it before, basically, we need to get insights from them and learn the tricks of the trade, what works and what doesn't, all of that great stuff. And so Elias went to this Candidate Development School And it was a whole bunch of people who had run for office before and told him, you should do this and you should do that, etc. Here's how you raise money. Here's how you talk to donors. Here's how you hold an event. Here's how you communicate. Here's how you speak in public. And this is about a week-long school. He comes out of the school and then takes a couple more classes from there. And as soon as the internship ends, he goes back to West Virginia, starts to run for office, knocks on the doors, uses the training that he just learned, and wins his election and becomes the youngest elected representative of West Virginia. Stories like that happen because of training, right? How does an 18-year-old kid beat, he was running against someone who, I forget his exact age, but it was over 50. So how does some 18-year-old kid beat some 50-year-old who theoretically has more wisdom, more experience, more acumen, everything of that nature? Again, the answer was training. And so what I encourage people to do is find people who have gone before you. Maybe there is someone, sometimes there's not, but most times there's somebody there who has won an election or knows the tricks of the trade, as I said before. And we need to use more of these people and to share their knowledge with the rest of us and inspire us to act. So as an organization, to put this all together, if we create a vision that we're going to elect, let's just say 100 Liberty legislators in the next 5 years, we're going to get 100 of them elected. Now, when people join our organization, they're thinking, hey, maybe one of those is me. And then we'll host these training events, right? And at these training events, people will then see, hey, this is possible. Wait, I know how to run for office now. And we encourage them, they take action, and hopefully, if the training's good, and if, you know, they have to be good too, right? No skeletons in the closet, all that good stuff. But they can really take action. But the people need that vision from the organization, and then they need that encouragement that the training provides that tells them that they can truly make that impact. And so those are two things that are a big difference maker in terms of getting people elected, getting organizations off the ground.
Wow. So you know that we are trying to build BPLGA in Bangladesh. In our vision, that's a non-partisan educational training institute. It would be like that, and we are trying to get board members from all the active political parties from the country, because so that everyone should understand that this is a non-partisan place where we get training to fight the battle. So building on that vision, I would like to get some experience from you, like how this leadership training looks like how should we train them?
Yeah, that's a good question. The logistics of the actual training. So there's a couple big components to this. I'm going to break it into 4 big components. Number 1 is the environment itself. And there's a good quote on the rules of the public policy process that says, the mind can absorb no more than the seat can endure. The mind can absorb no more than the seat can endure. And what that means is basically you can really turn people off if you have a death by PowerPoint situation. We've all been in those classrooms before where your teacher is talking about something you don't care about, and they just keep talking, and you're not learning, you're zoning out, wondering when it's going to be over. And so you have to have the right environment, which means you have to have structure within the day. And I would think of it a lot like a school. And that is going to put you in the right frame of mind as to what days should look like. You know, maybe walking in at 9 a.m., having a lunch in between, a coffee break in the afternoon, and probably home by 5 p.m., right? And take just that full day of someone's time. And one full day can really change the course of someone's life if you do it right. But in terms of structure, again, don't overload people. You should definitely take it like a work day, like a school day, and structure it like that. Add those breaks, allow people to communicate, allow them to network. Half of the value there, and less than half, but a significant amount of value, is people talking to each other. And so having that time for them to interact with each other, exchange business cards, talk about their journey, why they're potentially interested in politics, what their story may be, all good things to do. Now, that's one, having the right environment. So think classroom, think school, and don't overload people. We should space it out, or just do it all in a day. Number 2 of 4 is that you need the right topics. And there's just a couple things that a candidate needs in terms of confidence. They need to know how to communicate, and they need to know how to fundraise. If you can do those 2 things, you can run for office. Now, the fundraising component changes based on your country. Often in some countries, you'll get funding from your political party, you'll get funding from the government. Certainly that's what happens in Germany and the UK and France and places like that. I'm not totally sure about the election laws of Bangladesh, but no matter what, getting more money is definitely a good thing. And so the course, the day should be focused on, here's how you message to voters, here's how you message to donors and your constituents, etc. And the other half is, here's how you fundraise money. That way you can keep the lights on, right? There's another good quote from the laws of the public policy process that's, you can't save the world if you can't pay the rent. And that's so true. So you definitely got to keep the lights on. So fundraising and communication are the top two topics. And then from there, I'd layer on maybe a panel or something, again, of people who've done things before, and you'll be in really good shape from there. Now that's two. So we've got the environment, and then we've got the topics. The next big thing that you need is the people. And the people matter. They matter a lot. And what I would say is, I really enjoy a interview or selection-based criteria for allowing people into these classes. It's not to restrict anybody, but it's to make sure they are really trying to be there intentionally. If I told you I could give all of this away to you for free, you think it's less valuable. You have to.
That's we are seeing in our BEP, CMEP, all the programs we are implementing in Bangladesh. People say, okay, why you are giving it free?
Exactly. That's one of the first pushbacks. They're like, wait, if it's free too, it must be not good. I want to pay a lot for like the best, right? And that's not always the case, but that's what people think. And so the way to dispel this with the people and get really good people is applications. And so have people apply for the school. And maybe it is free because they got scholarshipped, and maybe it was always free, but that changes the mindset of like, hey, I just signed up for something because it was free, versus, hey, I applied for this prestigious program, they accepted me and covered all my costs. That sounds way different, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really big, and that's going to really elevate the caliber of people. And you don't need a lot of people in these classes. If you have 5 people that are serious, that's going to be really good. So don't think you need hundreds of people, but that's great if you do, and you'll get there. But just to get started, 4 people, 5 people in a classroom at a time can start to move the needle, especially if they've applied, they're serious about it, and they really want to learn. So that's the third thing. And the fourth and final thing that I think is really, really impactful is a network. So you can't just let people go. So once they've gone through this class, there should be a watering hole of some sort. And the example I give here is that of like a safari, or like you're in the jungle and there's like a watering hole where all the animals can come together and like drink, kind of like the Lion King style. But in politics, there should be something like that. Whether it's a WhatsApp group or a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group, we should put people all in a group. And then you're going to have alumni, right? And people can tap into that group to continue talking or make requests or learn more information about what's going on, etc. But you need that environment after the program. And so those are the 4 big components that I would say are critical to making sure these trainings work well. There's more, but those are probably the big 4.
Wow, that's an excellent idea. Like a club of leaders who are trained and like in a mission to move the world forward.
Yes, that's exactly right. And then how they can lean on each other, right? Like maybe they are, like, for example, that natural disaster that hit us all, COVID-19, when that happened, you're like, what do we do, right? How do we react? If there's a group where we can talk about what we're going to do next, then we can move together. I think that's a beautiful thing. So I really encourage having some type of group for people to join. That way they can stay connected and stay networked for the foreseeable future.
Thank you so much for your structure. We'll definitely take a lot from that to build our BPLGA. So on your note, I would like to let our audience know we are trying to do a player 1 simulation in Bangladesh in physical format. Already we have done player 1 in like app format for our volunteers. We are testing it, beta test, and we are next going to organize a seminar on political leadership training and those stuff, then maybe a boot camp. and one player one simulation like on physical field, like people will role play different roles. It will pretty much like performing in government operations and something like that, like you will act as an MP or prime minister or a government official, something like that. So I welcome everyone to join us, join CARO, and join our education programs and try to spread the word, because the situation in Bangladesh is not because we don't have people who can lead. It's about the people we had. They are lacking some skills. If they have that, then maybe we can see a different environment, different outcomes from the country, like the same aged countries who born in the same ages, a lot of them grown. Why they grown, why we cannot? So the only difference is the leadership, and the leadership in politics is the most.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's really cool. And I'm hopeful for this player one simulation. I've tested the beta test. I like where this is going. I think it reminds me of Jean Piaget and Vygotsky and Seymour Papert. These are all philosophers that focus around education, and they all really talk about having constructionism, basically real world scenarios and applications is one of the best ways to learn. And I think this player one simulation is exactly that. It demystifies the decisions that a particular elected official needs to make, and even more than that, encourages the student, the participant, to really live in that scenario, which I think is cool. So I'm excited for this. I'm ready for it to go public. You're going to do really well with this.
To let everyone know how come I made this player one simulation visible, that goes to Stephen and Stephen only. Thank you, Stephen.
Of course.
You made the player one like having birth.
I'm here to help. And the cool thing that I find, and I've heard this a lot, is basically most people have these great ideas, but they don't have the digital skill set to like bring them to life. My mission in this world is to truly impact politics with digital technology, and it's been a fun experience my entire career. And I think this is just another good example of it. But we need more people to use the internet to win and to train, because it's a powerful thing that's not going away anytime soon.
And you eventually have to come here. There is no other way. So I'm talking to you, sir, ma'am. Yes, I'm talking to you, sir. We're saying this. If you have what it takes to change the world, to make it better, the time to act is now. Join CARO, and of course, please continue donations, because your donations keep the work moving forward. So I would like to have a final note from Stephen before we end this impactful, so passionate, powerful conversation.
Yes, absolutely. So I think my final words here are, I love what you just said. It reminds me of JFK. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? And that's an important thing to reflect on, because when you're looking around and you're saying, who's going to do something? Who's going to stand up and finally fight for what I believe in? There is one person, and I know that they exist. And I'll tell you what, you can find them too. You go into your bathroom, you look in your mirror and stare at that person. That person's the one that needs to impact politics. That's the person that needs to get involved. That's the person that needs to make a change. And I really encourage you, if you felt even something of a spark, to fan that flame a little bit, pique your curiosity, check out CARO and get involved. in the political process, and you'll find that you can truly make a difference. And the last thing that I'll say is a story, and it's a story that a lot of people are familiar with because it's Sam and Frodo in Lord of the Rings. And basically, this is the second movie. Sorry for any spoilers out there, but it's been out for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But anyways, so it's the end of the movie, and it looks pretty dark and pretty desolate. And they're despairing because there's fire everywhere. They're being attacked. The orcs are winning. And Sam and Frodo, these small little hobbits, are trying to figure out what they can do. And they are pretty despaired, like I said. And Frodo, who's carrying the ring, doesn't know if he's going to make it to Mordor and thinks they're going to fail, looks at his friend Sam and says, "Sam, why are we doing this?" And Sam replies, "Because there's some good in this world, and it's worth fighting for." And my friends watching this podcast right now know that there's a lot of good in this world, and it's worth fighting for. And all it takes in that story was two little hobbits. And I promise you're probably taller than them, you're probably smarter than them, and you're probably stronger than them. So let's stand up together, let's make a difference, and let's make an impact in the public policy process of the future. Really appreciate the time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your wisdom. And thank you, listeners, for joining us on this very first step. Subscribe to follow CARO's journey, how we try to make leadership of the future. Thank you.